Hello everybody and welcome into our weekly episodic television series. We like to call it The Big Hit. On today's show we've got our eye on the future, but we're going to begin by looking at the week that was in the National Football League with our Red Zone recap. Sean Fritz and Will Gaucher will be here to discuss everything going on in the world of the NFL. The Pittsburgh Steelers and Tampa Bay Buccaneers played a tremendous game at Heinz Field. We'll discuss that, and we'll also take a look at the NFC South dynamic as well. And then we'll move on to the world of Division I college football in the Campus Scramble, recapping the thrilling showdown between North Carolina State and Florida State, and predicting the SEC West winner as well. And then it's our MLB playoff preview, ladies and gentlemen. The Pittsburgh Pirates are set to go in their wild card matchup. We'll go division by division, series by series, giving our predictions all the way until the World Series as well. And then it's our NHL Western Conference preview. Ben Snyder and Mike Gosnell are here in studio, going to preview the NHL Western Conference, look at some accolades at the end of the year, and a lot more coming up in the NHL Western Conference preview. And then we're going to close the show out with the Crimson Huddle recapping the game against the Mercyhurst Lakers and looking forward to the IUP Crimson Hawks' impending showdown with the Edinburgh Fighting Scots. And then, of course, Kyle Condor is here to close things out with the 2-minute drill. You don't want to miss it, ladies and gentlemen. The Pittsburgh Pirates are going to be on the air soon, and so are we. It's The Big Hit right now. And hello everybody, welcome into the only sports talk show that really matters right here on IUP-TV. It's The Big Hit. It's time to talk some National Football League in our Red Zone recap. And joining us for that, it's our NFL analyst on the far left, making his Big Hit debut, Sean Fritz, and Will Gaucher is in the middle. Guys, let's discuss everything happening in the NFL this week, beginning with the Pittsburgh Steelers, now 2-2 after a loss 27-24 to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tampa scoring late. Mike Lennon to Vincent Jackson, dooming the Steelers here. Steelers D not very good, giving up 26 points in 3 of their last 4 games. Sean, we'll start down with you. Is the defense more of an issue for the Steelers than their offense is at this point?
I think the theme of the NFL right now is more of just the theme would be inconsistency, and the Steelers are no exception to that. I think when you look at the Steelers, they look to struggle on the defensive side of the football. And, some people are saying, oh, well, the offensive side isn't much better. But I think both sides of the football have, done things this season that have put them in opportunities to win games. And I think through the first 4 weeks of the season, I think they have had their opportunities. And, it all comes down to, playing in the second half, which is, I think, their problem. The Steelers in 3 out of the 4 games, not including the Carolina game, have been outscored 57-13. And, where's the blame go? It could be the defense, it could be the offense. You can make arguments for both. But right now, I think it's more of just a wait-and-see game. And I think that over the next couple of weeks, we're going to find out just what type of team they are.
You had said it, Sean, that the Steelers, we still don't know who they are. Jarvis Jones goes down, Ryan Shazier goes down, Ike Taylor's down. They bring in James Harrison back from his retirement, if that's what you want to call it. But we don't know the identity of this defense. So, indeed, the defense is more of a problem than their offense is right now, because the offense is running not as fluent as it should be, but is finding its way. 4th in rushing with the 1-2 punch of LeGarrette Blount and Le'Veon Bell. And the offense is really clicking right now, and they still have their little pieces. Marcus Wheaton has to get more involved in the offense. But I feel that the defense, it's just not the same how it used to be a couple years ago. They're missing something. I'm not too sure what it is, if it's on the back end in the secondary or if it's up front, but they need to get that Steel Curtain attitude back.
Yeah, the Steelers have certainly been lacking on the defensive side of the football, and this has been a trend for a couple of years. You could see it developing, just getting worse and worse, and now with some key injuries, inconsistencies rather, certainly costing the Steelers here, but a lot of self-inflicted wounds as well. Penalties, a personal foul variety, really killing the Pittsburgh Steelers in the game against Tampa Bay. But taking a look ahead at their schedule the next 3 weeks, they play the Jacksonville Jaguars, Cleveland Browns, and Houston Texans before they go on a bye week. A relatively easy schedule, of course, in the NFL. There are no easy games, but is it realistic to expect the Steelers to win all 3 of their games, or will these inconsistencies that have hampered them all year come back to bite them?
I think, is it realistic? No. Is it possible? Yes. I feel like I see this every year with the Steelers. Teams that they should beat, they struggle with. It seems they play down a level of competition. Teams that they're supposed to lose to, that they go out and play hard. So you never know what you're going to get with them. And like I said, the NFL has been plagued with inconsistencies this year. I don't think it's definite that the Steelers are going to go out and go 3-0 in the next 3 weeks. Do I think that they have a good opportunity to win some of these games? Absolutely. I think they'll definitely pick up a win against Jacksonville. Pending that the offense shows up, and so does the defense. Get that whole thing clicking, and like I said earlier, they got to finish in the second half. So the next 3 weeks, I think it's definitely a toss up, and it's kind of a wait and see thing.
I definitely have to agree with you that the Pittsburgh Steelers, these next 3 games are not only, they're the most 3 important games, let's just say, of their season for right now. Of course, you got to look one game ahead, take it one game at a time versus Jacksonville. You don't ever want to overlook anybody. But then after that, you go into what I like to call their former rivals, now that being the Ravens. But they're going into Cleveland. And we saw what happened in week 1. And they almost let that game get away from them after holding a major lead, which is really rare for the Steelers to jump out like that in week 1. And then then they have a game versus Houston. Now, Houston is running on all cylinders, even though it lost Matt Schaub in the offseason, and Arian Foster went down with some injuries, but it looks like he's coming back this week, and of course he'll be ready for that week 7 matchup. And so they got to watch out, because if they drop 2 of these games, they'll be in deep trouble.
Yeah, it really is hard to say that a game at this point in the season is a must-win game, but looking at that performance against Tampa Bay, having the Jacksonville Jaguars on your schedule next, if you lose to this team, lots of problems in Steeler Nation. One guy that hasn't really been a problem, despite his personal foul penalty, has been Antonio Brown. 20 straight games with 5+ receptions. That's good for an NFL record. He has been really good for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But let's go ahead and move to the National Football Conference, more specifically the NFC South. If you bear with me, guys, as I'll run through this conference real quick, as the Falcons and Panthers are both 2-2 coming off of losses. Tampa Bay now 1-3 following their win against the Steelers, and the Saints have been playing poorly as well, and they're sitting at 1-3 as well. Very up in the air. A lot of teams have not really lived up to their expectations so far this year. So who do you have winning the NFC South?
Again, I go to my point of inconsistency in the NFL, and I think at this point in time, I think it's shocking just to see that these 3 teams, not including Tampa Bay, I think a lot of people thought that they would struggle at the start, but I think Carolina, Atlanta, and New Orleans, I think when you look at these teams and you see their struggles and their inconsistencies, I think it's a little bit of shock for people. But who do I think is gonna bounce back to win this division? I think I'm gonna go with my preseason pick, and I think it's gonna be the New Orleans Saints. I think right now they've got some defensive issues in the with their personnel, but people like Jarius Byrd coming in, but I think they're going to get all that stuff worked out, and I think that they're going to end up winning the division.
I'm going to have to disagree with you, Sean. I have to go down to my personal vacation spot of Charlotte, North Carolina. Now, down there you have Cam Newton, who is the NFL Superman. You see it. He's always pulling it out. And then you got Kelvin Benjamin. Now, this young rookie, he's something special. Now, with those 2 gaining chemistry and those 2 going through it together through these next couple years, however long that the contracts run for, you got to watch out. Now, they have been inconsistent on defense, as you saw in the big blowout loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers, but their wins that they have gotten, they have been, I'll tell you, tremendous. And Cam Newton, once he finds his groove throughout the next couple of weeks, it's going to be something special to watch. But you do also have to watch out for the Atlanta Falcons, because Mike Smith has that ball team believing that they can win after having a down year last year. And Matt Ryan, he's putting together some nice numbers. Second in the league in passing yards. And those two teams I have to look at, because New Orleans, I just can't see them right now because of all those inconsistencies on the defensive side of the ball.
Absolutely. This has been a chaotic division the last number of years. Plenty of teams going from worst to first and winning the division. Still very much up in the air here in the early portion of this season. But let's go ahead and move to another NFC team, of course, discussing the San Francisco 49ers, as they were able to hand the Philadelphia Eagles their first loss of the season. But the 49ers have not played particularly well this season, and looking ahead at their schedule, it is not very friendly. They still have the Broncos, Chargers, Cardinals, and Seahawks coming up on their schedule. So how do you see the 49ers season playing out?
Personally, I don't think that they're as good of a football team as they were last year. I think, this week you can't take anything away from them. A win is a win in this past week against Philadelphia. But if you look at it a little bit from a negative perspective, I guess you could say that Philadelphia didn't play up to their expectations, Not taking anything away from the San Francisco defense. The San Francisco defense played phenomenal by shutting down one of the more potent offenses in the National Football League in Philadelphia. But Philadelphia did not score in the second half, and that has been San Francisco's problem. I think San Francisco has a lot of problems ahead of them if their defense doesn't play like that every single week. And I know they're missing some key guys right now in Navarro Bowman and Aldon Smith, but I don't see them just being able to hang on until those two guys can get back later in the season.
Yeah. The 49ers, they're in a bit of a pickle right now, because this upcoming schedule that they have, it's a tough one. Mm-hmm. It might be one of the toughest ones that the NFL has seen in a while, because you have the Broncos on there, the Cardinals on there, which are in their division, the Seahawks still twice. Yeah. And those two teams, that might be the best rivalry in football right now. But when you take away from what they did Sunday and took the will from the Eagles, who were about to have their first 4-0 start since the Donovan McNabb era, that shows resiliency, that they still have fight left in them. Even though it's early in the season, teams like to get off to those good starts. And we cannot forget that this is the same team, not all the same pieces, but the same mindset behind it, that went to 3 straight NFC championship games. So we have to always keep that in mind, that they're willing to fight, and they have hearts of champions. I mean, look at their coach.
I think they had to prove to themselves that they needed to win on Sunday, and they did just that. So,
very true.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that was really impressive about the 49ers is how they were able to shut down that Philadelphia offense. Philadelphia scoring with an interception return, a blocked punt in the end zone, and then, of course, a Darren Sproles punt return. That high-octane offense shut down by the 49ers. That's the mantra and the way they're going to have to play against some really good teams coming up. But let's go ahead and quickly close this segment out by looking at some of the Thursday night games. They've all been blowouts. It's not been a good slate, a good opening year for Thursday night football on the NFL. This week we have the Minnesota Vikings going to Green Bay. Of course, the Vikings dealing with a plethora of off-the-field issues, and they have some injuries to deal with as well going into Green Bay. Do you see this trend of blowouts continuing with Minnesota and Green Bay very quickly as we run low on time?
I don't know if it's going to be a blowout. There could be a good chance of it. I feel like this Green Bay offense may have just gotten together last week and gotten into the rhythm and are going to start clicking. Hopefully for Packer fans, that's what they're hoping for. So I think Minnesota's going to score. I don't think it's going to be a shutout or anything like that, but I think regardless of who's playing quarterback for Minnesota this week, whether it's Christian Ponder or Teddy Bridgewater, I think they're going to struggle with this Don Capers defense. And like I said, I think they are going to score. Matt Asiata is running the ball real well for him. So I think it's going to be an interesting game, but we'll just see, how the rhythm continues for this Packer offense.
I'll start this off by saying blowout. This will be a blowout, only because there's a bad man that roams that field, and he wears number 12. And let me tell you a thing or two about number 12. He has some toys that he likes to play with on his outside, and now he has somebody in the back, Eddie Lacy, where he can get those play-action fakes going. The Minnesota Vikings defense, they have been holding up very well against the pass and not giving up that many points, but I think Mr. Rogers is looking to have a little fun on Thursday night when he knows that it'll be his time to shine and those bright lights will be on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I don't think anybody said anything truer on this show ever. Aaron Rodgers is a bad man, to say the least. That's all the time we have here, guys, talking some NFL football in the Red Zone recap. For Sean, Fritz, and Will Gaucher, we want you to stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen, because we're going to take a quick break and return with some more football talk, this time at the Division I college level. We'll be right back with our Campus Scramble right here on The Big Hit.
I'm a big believer in the power of we. We can tackle the tough challenges we face and build community through service and volunteering. It's time for you to raise your hand. Go to serve.gov and get involved in something you believe in.
How will you raise your hand when they call your name?
Are you with me?
We weren't born to follow.
And welcome back into The Big Hit, ladies and gentlemen. It's time to talk some more football, this time on the Division I at college level with our Campus Scramble, an extension of the Red Zone recap. And joining me for that, it is Chris Hayes and Vaughn Dalzell. Guys, let's just jump right in. Not a lot of time here in this segment, but the Florida State Seminoles had a good victory, 56-41 over the North Carolina State. Jameis Winston returning, but not the most decisive win for Florida State. So I want to know right now, does this rocky performance show that Florida State isn't invincible? Chris, we'll start with you.
Florida State, in my opinion, is definitely not invincible. Their first game against Oklahoma State, they barely won. Oklahoma State's not a very strong team, I would say. They barely beat Clemson without Jameis Winston in that one game where he was suspended. Winston's off the field antics, they've just been a little out of control. The thing where he tried to rob a grocery store and then he stood on the table of the student union and screamed some obscene gesture. He's a little bit out of control, in my opinion. So even though they are undefeated, the #1 team in the country, I think they have their share of problems, Juan.
Yeah, I agree. Florida State obviously has their flaws. Their defense didn't produce how they wanted to, led them 41 points to a pretty good North Carolina State team, but not an excellent team. And when I think about how they played, if they want to make that the 4-seed tournament at the end of the year, what if they have to play an Oregon team, a fast-paced, offensive scoring team? Are they going to be able to hold them to 41 or 100 points? And I highly doubt that. So I don't know. I think that's the big thing. And Jameis Winston had 3 turnovers, and he definitely can't do that versus a top-ranked team, let alone a North Carolina State team.
Yeah, absolutely. Florida State, the jury's still kind of out on them. We'll have to follow them the rest of the way. But let's move on and talk about the SEC West, because it's shaping up to be one of the best divisions in all of college football. Five of the 7 teams out of that division are undefeated. Texas A&M, of course, one of them coming off a 35-28 overtime victory, backed by Heisman hopeful Kenny Hill. Do you think they have what it takes to win the SEC West?
Well, A&M had a very convincing opening game win against South Carolina in their first game. Kenny Hill played out of his mind. I think he broke the record for most passing yards by an A&M player. He proved he could be even better than Manziel. But they have faced weaker competition since then. They've had victories against Rice and SMU, not the most popular, strong teams, I'd say. But in my opinion, they're not going to beat the Alabamas, the Auburns of the world. They're also in that West Division. The LSUs of the world, they're not going to beat those teams. Maybe one of them if they're lucky. They'll need a lot more than Kenny Hill to win this division, and I don't see it happening.
Yeah, I agree with that. Kenny Hill is an outstanding player. He may be better than Manziel. We don't know yet. It's hard to say because he hasn't played all the top teams like Alabama and LSU that we just named. But I think when you have an Alabama team like that, like they've been the past 3-4 years, so dominant, it's going to be hard to just top them. LSU always has a solid defense and a great run game. It's going to be hard for A&M to be the most outstanding team in that conference. But I definitely think they have a shot with Kenny Hill at quarterback if he continues to play at the level he's been producing at.
Yeah, Kenny Trill playing at a very high level, but let's move to a team that's not playing so well right now, and that, of course, being the Michigan Wolverines, losing to Minnesota 30-14. This game was supposed to be a game that kind of took the heat off of Brady Hoke. Of course, Michigan losing to Notre Dame and Utah this year, but now his job seems to be in more jeopardy than ever. You watched that press conference this week, and not good there. Do you expect Brady Hoke to last the rest of the season, or is he out the door midway through?
I think he will last the season. It's kind of uncommon for college coaches to get fired mid-season. It could be in this case for Michigan because they're such a well-known program with a big reputation, but I think he'll last the season. They have a tough remaining schedule. They play Ohio State and Michigan State. They'll probably lose both those games, and I expect Hoke to be let go after this season if they do end up with a losing record.
Yeah, no question about it. I don't think he can continue to be their coach after this season. I'm not a huge fan of letting go your coach in the middle of the season. That's more of an NFL thing, I feel like, that goes on. But I definitely feel like they should let him play out the rest of the season. They're probably going to end up with a losing record, in my opinion, and probably most people's opinions in that Big Ten conference. So I say just let it play out. But next year they're going to have to look for a new coach, someone to come in right away, be a player's coach, and pull them all in and sell what he wants to do with that program, because what's going on right now is not working out for them very well.
Yeah, and of course you know how high of a standard Michigan is held to, so if somebody's not producing, you have to think they're going to go in a different direction. But let's go ahead and get caught up on our local teams here, of course being Pitt and Penn State, starting with the Pittsburgh Panthers losing to Akron 21-10 this Saturday. Pitt coming in with a great running game. It was a bit stifled this week, though. James Conner only had 92 yards rushing, which is a tough game for him. He's been really doing some good things in Pitt, but after 2 straight losses, should Pitt be concerned now, because it's not all roses like it was earlier this year?
They should be very concerned, in my opinion. They've always been known as kind of a mediocre team since those years back in the 70s and 80s. They've always gone like 6-6, 7-5, or that kind of team. And I thought this season had a chance to be different with Chad Voitic at quarterback, Tyler Boyd, with James Conner also. I thought they had some star power on offense especially. But after those first few wins, they've really fallen off with losses to Akron. Like you said, that's a bad loss. They also lost to another bad team. It's been embarrassing for them, and I think they will go like a 6-6, 7-5. That'll be another mediocre season for them.
Yeah, 10 points is unacceptable versus an Akron team like that. You have Tyler Boyd, who's he was one of the best freshmen in the country last year out of the greater Pittsburgh area in Clareton. James Conner he's a beast, almost 700 rushing yards already. This guy's leading the NCAA. He's doing what he has to do. But they've always had a problem at quarterback, and that's what's slowing them down once again. Their defense played okay. 21 points to Akron's not bad. It's not terrible, but it's not also good. I feel like they have to come a lot better on offense, because only 10 points is not enough to get the job done, especially versus an Akron team. You should be able to put up way more points than that versus a mediocre team like that.
Yeah, Pitt losing to Akron, and not much better for the Penn State Nittany Lions either, losing to Northwestern 29-6 on Saturday. Their first loss of the season. Northwestern picked apart the Penn State offensive line all game and really put a lot of pressure on Penn State quarterback Christian Hackenberg. Does this loss effectively knock Penn State out of the discussion for the top 25 ranking?
Well, Penn State opened with a pretty soft schedule. They played UCF, Akron, UMass, not very well-known teams. They still have Ohio State and Michigan State left to play against. I think they could eventually end up in the top 25 if they maybe steal one of those games. But as of now, I don't see it happening, because they've had that bad loss this last week against Northwestern. And maybe they'll steal one of those games, like I said, but I don't see it happening.
Yeah, I wouldn't count them out yet, but I feel like Christian Hackenberg has to lead that team. I mean, like we were just talking about Pitt, how they don't score. 6 points for him, who's labeled as a super sophomore, has to produce more than that. You can't put up 6 points for a Northwestern team, which they're a pretty decent team, but in the Big Ten, you have to win more of those games, especially with the likes of Ohio State now losing Braxton Miller. You got to take advantage of that and be productive, and they haven't done that. They've played soft teams, like you said, and they've all been close games for the most part. So they have to take that next step, that next level, and it's going to be interesting to see what they do and what Hackenberg can do, because I think he's a great quarterback, but he has to be a leader for that team, and he has to mature above what he is right now, I think, to lead that team to where they have to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Both Pitt and Penn State facing a bit of adversity. We'll be keeping our eye on them throughout the season and the rest of the teams here in Division I college football. That's all the time we have for the Campus Scramble. For Chris Hayes and Vaughn Dalzell, stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen, because we've got our MLB playoff preview coming up in just a few moments right here on The Big Hit.
How are we going to watch this when you are just in La La Land? This is embarrassing.
Is that bad?
Look at you.
You know, I thought this was a pretty good segment.
Did you?
Yeah.
Do you even know what they're saying? You're putting your foot up on set. You just think this is a couch? This is embarrassing. I mean, even here, you're starting to interrogate somebody. Look at you. Turn your back to the camera. That's embarrassing. Where's your suit and tie? You have a pirate shirt on.
They made the playoffs.
I don't care. You can't be biased. This is ridiculous. Ay, Dios mío.
And welcome back into the Big Hit. We're going to take a detour here from our football route and talk some baseball here with our MLB playoff preview with a new graphic, I might add, here on the big screen. Guys, let's talk some playoff baseball with Samuel Wowak and Kyle Condor. The playoffs are finally here, and we're going to talk about the American League Divisional Series featuring the Detroit Tigers and Baltimore Orioles. Can the highly touted pitching of the Tigers shut down the offense of the Orioles? Just jumping right in here, guys.
Well, I do believe that they can. I think the Tigers pitching staff is phenomenal, and the Orioles they won't be able to keep up with it, especially since they lost, who was it? Crush Davis and who was the other guy? Manny Machado. They lost him too, so I just don't think that the Orioles have what it takes to do it.
Yeah, I mean, the Orioles definitely have a strong lineup despite the losses of those guys right there. They have Adam Jones, Nelson Cruz, who was the only 40 home run hitter in the bigs this year. But I don't think they're going to be able to keep up with the experience of the Detroit Tigers pitching staff and David Price, Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer, all guys who have been there before. But I think the Orioles won it. I'm just not sure if that's going to be enough for them to get past the Tigers, who have a great pitching staff and also some really nice bats in that lineup, Miguel Cabrera being one of them. So.
Yeah, and guys, I'm going to ask you here to give your series predictions. Get used to it because I'm going to be asking a lot throughout the segment. Who do you have winning this series?
I have the Tigers winning in all. I think it's going to take them all 5 games to win this.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see it go all 5. It'd be good for the game, help them sell tickets and things like that. But I think the Tigers are going to take this one pretty easily, possibly a sweep, maybe 4 games. Like I said, I just don't think the Orioles pitching staff is going to be able to keep up with the experience of the Tigers in that series.
Yeah, and let's go ahead and switch our focus to the other American League Division Series, which is pitting the wild card winner between the Oakland Athletics and Kansas City Royals. Of course, this being filmed on a Tuesday, game played probably right as we speak. So the winner will be decided here tonight against the Los Angeles Angels. Let's preview this series between whoever wins the wild card game and the Angels, and give me your series prediction as well.
I think Kansas City will take the wild card game. I think they'll be able to pull it out between Oakland. Oakland lost. They traded away a good player, Cespedes, and so I just don't think they'll be able to hold on. And I have the Angels winning in. Well, I think it'll only take them 4 games to win, and because Mike Trout is one of the best baseball players right now, and their offensive power is just too much.
Yeah, for sure, Sam. I would like to have said that the Royals were going to win that wild card game. It'd be great for the game, as I mentioned earlier. The team has not made the playoffs since 1985, but Josh, you mentioned the game's going on right now, and the A's have a 2-0 lead in the 2nd inning behind a Brandon Moss home run. So there's your update, guys. I think I'm going to go with the Oakland Athletics in that game. This is why I kind of don't like the new wild card setup that they have, because I think if the 2 teams were to play maybe a 5-game series, you'd see a really close one. But being that the A's have an ace in John Lester, who they acquired midseason, going up against a guy in James Shields, who they do call Big Game James. He's no joke. But I don't think he can match up with John Lester in 1 game. So I'm going to go with the Oakland A's in that series. And then they'll match up with the Los Angeles Angels, who you mentioned have studs in Mike Trout, Albert Pujols, guys like that. I like the Angels better when they had Garrett Richards before he went down for the season, an early Cy Young candidate. But I think they're still going to be able to take it. And I'll talk a little bit more about them later on. But I think they're going to be able to handle the A's in that series. I would like to see that one go 5, and I think it might.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's switch on over to the National League side of things with the first matchup pitting the St. Louis Cardinals against the Los Angeles Dodgers after an exciting National League Championship Series last year. The Cardinals and Dodgers will face off again, hoping to renew their rivalry and move on into the playoffs. Preview this series and give me your series prediction as well.
I have Los Angeles winning this one. I think it'll go 5 games. St. Louis is just too good to go out in less than that. And this with Yasiel Puig and Kershaw, I think they have the talent to go far in the playoffs.
Yeah, for sure, Sam. If I had to say so myself, I definitely think that this matchup is the NLCS before it even happens. These are two of the best teams, maybe in all of baseball, and probably certainly in the National League, if I had to say so. I think that the Dodgers rotation and Clayton Kershaw match up very well with the Cardinals, who at the top there is Adam Wainwright. The two of them are 20-game winners this season. I just think the Dodgers have a much stronger lineup. The Cardinals over the years have kind of lost the meat of that order. So I think the Dodgers and players like Yasiel Puig, Matt Kemp, et cetera, are going to be able to take that series. I think it'll go 5 as well, Sam.
Yeah, for the Dodgers, the list of big-name players goes on and on. But Kyle, you mentioned about how the wild card works and how one game, really anything can happen. That's the concern as a Pirates fan here, is these two teams, the Pittsburgh Pirates and San Francisco Giants, are set to match up tomorrow night, that being Wednesday. The winner of that will go on to play the best team in the National League, at least regular season-wise, the Washington Nationals. Can the wild card winner compete against the Nationals? And give me your predictions as well for that.
I have the Pirates winning over the San Francisco Giants. I like the way that they're playing right now. I think they're playing strong baseball at the end of the season. I think it'll carry over to postseason. And I do believe I have Pirates actually winning in 4 games against Washington. And so the Washington game, I think Washington's over. They're hyped. They're hyped up, and I don't think they're as good as everybody thinks they are. So.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the Pirates are definitely victims to that new wild card system, and this is because they don't really have a star-studded pitching rotation like some of the other teams in the National League. They're pitching a guy in Edison Volquez who may not even be their ace. They're just kind of throwing him out there, hoping they get to that divisional round, kind of saving some of their better pitchers for the early games in that series. And he's going up against a guy in Madison Bumgarner who's very proven over the years, played for Giants teams who have won the World Series, in fact. But I think the fact that the game's at home gives the Pirates a huge advantage. We saw how much of an advantage it gave them last year when they played the Reds. The fans got so into the Reds' heads, and I think they'll be able to do that against the Giants as well. So
that's clever.
Yeah, and so the Pirates will go on to face the Nationals. I think they got a lucky draw with that one. I think that's probably the team that they would choose to play if they had the choice themselves. And I think they'll be able to motor past the Nationals in that series because they have guys in McCutchen and Josh Harrison who definitely proved their worth throughout the season.
Yeah, Kyle Condor dropping bombs here on the set, and Edison Volquez looking to go up against Madison Bumgarner. Hopefully the Madison chants are in full effect at PNC Park on Wednesday. But let's go ahead and take a look into the future here with the NLCS and the ALCS. Predict those series and the winners for those respective series as well.
Again, I have the Angels advancing the whole way through. I love Mike Trout. I really do. I think he's a class act player. He's just one of a kind, and I think that they'll be able to beat whoever actually makes it. So I like the Angels.
I'm definitely going to have to agree with you. I like the Angels for the same reasons you do. Mike Trout, you can't go wrong with him in the outfield. Albert Pujols, he's been there, done that. So I kind of mentioned how much I like the Angels early on. I definitely think they'll be able to get past the Tigers. I think 7 games in that series, though, would be ideal. So I'm going to say the Angels go on to the World Series.
Yeah, we mentioned the World Series here. Who are your World Series champions going to be when all is said and done?
All said and done. Well, for the National League, I'm picking. I'm gonna have the Dodgers end up beating the Pirates, and so a battle of LA. I think the Dodgers will take it in 7 because that'd be a fantastic series to watch.
I guess we couldn't make this interesting, Sam. I'm going to go with the Dodgers, too. An LA World Series would be something to see, at least. It'd be good for the game. As I mentioned, plenty of things could be good for the game throughout this playoffs here. I'm not sure what they would call it. Maybe the Freeway Series or something, much like the Subway Series had it been New York and New York. But, yeah, I think the Dodgers will make it through to the World Series. That'd be cool to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And playoff baseball finally here. Hopefully Bucktober is going to be able to reign supreme here in the 2014 playoffs. And watch out, guys, that graphic might get you here as it drops down. But that's going to be all the time we have here for for our MLB playoff preview for Sam Owak and Kyle Condor. I know Dan wanted me to drop some information, but we don't have the time. We're going to move on to our NHL Western Conference preview in just a moment, right here on The Big Hit.
Here at The Big Hit, we like to be prepared, because sometimes technology doesn't always work, so we do what we can.
Hey, Sean, hit him up.
This just in, Tim Tebow just got inducted to the Hall of Fame. That's not right.
Maybe we need to prepare just a little more.
And welcome back into The Big Hit here. It's time for our NHL preview, looking at the Western Conference, a two-part preview. We're going to look at the East next week, but we're going to go to the West Coast to start here with the one behind the one in 90.1, Mike Gosnell, and the graphics connoisseur himself, Ben Snyder. Guys, let's jump right into it. Not a lot of time here, starting with the Pacific Division in the Western Conference. Of course, home to the defending Stanley Cup champion Los Angeles Kings, entering the year with an unchanged roster, relatively speaking. So do you see them repeating as Stanley Cup champions this year?
Quite honestly, this is probably the team that, in recent memory, that has the best shot of repeating as Stanley Cup champions. They lost absolutely nobody except for Willie Mitchell on their back end, and they have a great farm system in LA that can really replenish that one singular loss. But honestly, hockey's the most difficult sport to repeat in. You see it in the NBA, you have three-peats. You don't see that in the NHL at all. The last team to do that was Detroit back in the 90s. But I think the Los Angeles Kings can, and I do believe that they will repeat as Stanley Cup champions. But I'm assuming we'll get to that later.
Like you said, they have the best chance to make it, but I don't see it happening because hockey is such a dangerous, difficult sport to repeat in. The Kings are a possession team, which has been proven through Drew Doughty and Ante Kopitar, one of the best defensive forwards in hockey. Backed by Jonathan Quick as well, they have the skill to repeat, but I don't see them repeating though.
Yeah, we'll see if the Los Angeles Kings are able to eat, sleep, conquer, and repeat here at their way to a second straight Stanley Cup. But of course, also in the Pacific, we have the San Jose Sharks stripping Joe Thornton of his captaincy this year. They don't have a captain, but a disappointing playoff exit last year. What do the Sharks need to do to win their first Stanley Cup?
Quite apropos for the San Jose Sharks getting ousted in the playoffs. Very paper champion. Underwhelming team, mediocre. Say what you will about the San Jose Sharks. I don't think this year's going to be any better. Personally, I think you start the rebuild in a major way. Trading Joe Thornton is probably the best way to do that. Or Anthony Niemi, because he's really not getting the job done, although that's probably less likely. Alex Stalock's not really a viable number one option in San Jose. This team has the offense to compete in the very difficult Western Conference, but when it comes on defense, the cupboards are bare, aside from Marc-Edouard Vlasic and Brent Burns, who's now transitioning back to defense. I just don't see the San Jose Sharks really putting up a big fight, but their offense will certainly keep them in games.
Yeah, they're going to probably maintain their top spot near the top of the division, but they didn't do enough there to change the team this year. They just took away Jumbo Joe's captaincy, but that's it. They didn't really change the team around. They probably should have fired the coach, Todd McClellan, but they didn't do that. They didn't trade anyone away to get anyone better in the place of it. So it's just going to be the same old stuff.
And losing Dan Boyle and losing Marty Havlat in the offseason hurts as well.
It hurts.
So I just don't see San Jose really. There's at least 6 other teams better than San Jose in the Western Conference.
Yeah, is San Jose one of the teams that made the playoffs last year out of the Pacific? In fact, all of the teams in the Pacific were from California, Anaheim, San Jose, and Los Angeles. So let's go ahead and put our prediction caps on, and I want you to tell me who you think is going to win the division and who will make the playoffs out of the Pacific Division.
Well, we'll start with who's going to make the playoffs. I have the Los Angeles Kings winning that division. That's their division to lose. I think they're the best team in the Pacific Division as far as I'm concerned. Also, I have the Anaheim Ducks. They're going to compete for the number 1 spot. Ryan Kessler is an absolutely fantastic addition, barely giving up anybody. Although Nick Bonino, was a very, very solid third-line center for them. And also, I have the Vancouver Canucks, a solid addition, Radim Vrbata. But that's my 3. San Jose, this is the year that it's really going to start their rebuild, or a thing that they really needed to start a couple years ago.
I'm disagreeing with you on that one, Goose. I think the Sharks will still make the playoffs, but they'll be third place. First place will be the Ducks, because that addition of Ryan Kessler is such a massive addition, and it'll just be so beneficial to their play. So they're going to maintain probably 110 points or so each year. Kings number 2, they're making the playoffs. 4, 5, and 6 will be the Coyotes, the Canucks, and the Oilers, with the Flames rounding out the 7th, because the Flames haven't really gotten any better this season.
Yeah, let's go ahead and move on to the Central Division here in the Western Conference. Colorado Avalanche won it last year, barely edged out the St. Louis Blues for the division last season, but the Colorado Avalanche lost Paul Stastny, but they also signed Jerome McGinley, so a tit for tat there. But will Patrick Waugh's sophomore season yield the same results as his first year? A good year for the Avalanche, of course.
It was a very unexpected year for the Colorado Avalanche. Of course, Nathan McKinnon really their stalwart there. I don't foresee them winning this division. This is probably the best division in the NHL. You have so many good teams in this division. This is it for Jerome McGinley. This is the year for him, or the 2 years I believe he signed with Colorado. If they don't win a Stanley Cup, he'll go down as one of the best players not to win a Stanley Cup. The loss of Paul Stastny, I do think that's going to be too much. He was too valuable to them, although they do have some pieces there. Just having Paul Stastny there really is going to be, it will prove that this is a big loss for them. I just don't see quite the same results. I do think they make the playoffs, but I don't think it's going to be nearly as successful as it was for Patrick Waugh's freshman year in the NHL.
The loss of Paul Stastny is a huge loss to Colorado. He was one of their main face-off guys, and face-offs wins you games. And the Central Division is going to be a dogfight between St. Louis, Chicago, and possibly even Dallas, along with Colorado. There's going to be a fight for these top positions. Colorado will still maintain a position up there, but I don't think they're going to win it.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of good teams here in the Central. You, of course, mentioned the Chicago Blackhawks. Adding Brad Richards should help there. And you also mentioned the Dallas Stars. Let's touch on them a bit. They've been slowly rising up those ranks the last number of years and made the playoffs last year after a 5-year drought. Jason Spezza, Alice Hemsky added to bolster the offense along with Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin. So is this the Stars' year? Do you see them as a threat to the rest of the division?
Absolutely. I mean, how could you not like the Dallas Stars? Adding Jason Spezza, who's just after years of watching him in Ottawa, you can definitely tell that I think he was refreshed and ready to go. At watching their first preseason game, he was really refreshed to get a fresh start in Dallas. They haven't re-signed Brendan Dillon yet. The contract negotiations are still ongoing. But if you look at Dallas on paper, that team could win the division, but that's just on paper. They're going to have a very difficult time competing against the likes of Chicago. Because Dallas, to me, is not there yet. I think they need their younger guys to develop a bit more, get more rounded out on the bottom 6. But on paper, if you look at Dallas, that's a very impressive lineup. And Jason Spezza and Ales Hemsky just bolster that Dallas offense that has really evolved into a elite offense.
When you look at the power play for Dallas, you're going to be seeing Jason Spezza, Ales Hemsky, Jamie Benn, and Tyler Seguin, who scored the most points for them last season, backed by defenseman either Trevor Daley or even Sergei Gonchar, who's been the power play quarterback for many years in Pittsburgh and other teams. I don't think they're going to win the division, but they will. I'm going to have them on 4th, get a 4th place in the division behind Colorado, Chicago, and St. Louis.
Yeah, you mentioned who you think is going to win the division here, so Goose, will go down to you. Which team is going to adapt or perish, so to speak, here in the Central Division, and who do you have making the playoffs also?
Well, the team that adapted the most is St. Louis. They got their number 2 center at least. I don't know if Paul Stastny's going to be their number 1 guy. That spot's reserved for David Backes. But I think St. Louis Blues will win this division. Just a solid team all around. Losing Jarl Halak, of course, that's a big loss for them. Traded away, of course, mid-season last year. But I just like the makeup of St. Louis. Chicago, this is going to be a very close division. Mm-hmm. This could flip-flop, actually. Chicago, of course, they're in the conversation. Then you have Colorado, you have Minnesota, you have Dallas. I think 5 teams can make the playoffs from this division.
Same here. I have St. Louis, Colorado, Chicago, Dallas, Minnesota, all making playoffs. Nashville and Winnipeg rounding out the top 7, or the 7 of the entire division. I have St. Louis taking the division because with that addition of Paul Stastny, it's just, they're already a defensive-minded team, and adding Paul Stastny in there just makes them that much better.
Yeah, absolutely. Should be a really good year in the Western Conference. Of course, the West, the superior division, or conference rather, in the NHL. But that's part 1 here for our NHL preview. Next week, we'll talk about the Eastern Conference. Thanks, guys, for the one behind the one, Mike Gusnow and Ben Snyder. Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen, because we're going to take it to the world of IUP football in the Crimson Huddle, coming up next right here on The Big Hit.
Listen, all I'm saying is LeBron James is better than Michael
Oh,
Jordan.
Why did everybody get so quiet?
And welcome back into The Big Hit, ladies and gentlemen. It's the only sports talk show that really matters right here on IUP-TV. And it's time to talk some IUP Crimson Hawks football in the Crimson Huddle. And joining us for that, you can hear him on 90.1 WIUP-FM's broadcast is the color analyst, Dimitri George. And in the middle, it's Malusi Kitchen. Guys, let's talk some IUP football. Starting with their game on Saturday, the Crimson Hawks returning home after 2 straight road contests, facing the Mercyhurst Lakers, 0-3 at the time. A good win for the Crimson Hawks. 41-7 was the final score there, dropping Mercyhurst to 0-4. IUP moving to 3-1 on the year. Guys, let's get your thoughts on the game, because it was a good one for the Crimson Hawks. They really took a step forward.
Yeah, when you look at this game, returning from a 2-game road trip, getting stomped around by Kutztown 44-7, and then getting a victory against Lock Haven 21-16. I think IUP was excited to get back home, get to sleep in their own beds the night before the game, get back to their normal routine, and it really showed on the field. 41-7 is a butt whooping in my eyes, and it really was all 3 phases. If you look at offensively, Luigi Listabrenza, I know we'll get into him in a little bit, had another great game, got in the end zone 3 times. You look at Chase Hazlitt, very efficient. I think he's a quarterback if you have the running game going. He plays better off the play action. Brock DeSico is back, and that definitely helped the offense. He's just such a big target, especially in D2 football. He's almost a matchup nightmare for anybody. And defensively, they just played sound football, good tackling. I thought Kevin Clark and Aquino Robinson played really, really well. I thought they showed great tackling abilities. They were flying around, making plays. And overall, it was just a good team performance. I think that is IUP football. That's what we've come to know and love from Kurt Signetti, coach football team. And it was pretty exciting to see.
Yeah, I would say that they had an amazing game. Chase Hazlitt, he had a very efficient game. The offense was working well. They put up 27 points in the first quarter, which was very good for them, especially coming off the road contest they had against Lock Haven, coming off that tough 21-16 win. I think it's good for them to get back into, like you said, their routine, their natural habits, and I think they just played great. The defense just definitely stepped up, and I think the presence of the Hawks Nest and the crowd definitely helped them with the game. When you have your fans behind them, that definitely helps you play better, play harder. So I just think they had a great game plan. They didn't relax on their heels and come back, getting off this Lock Haven win. They just came here, they handled business, and they're on to the next one with the Edinburgh.
Yeah, there's a lot of different angles to look at this football game with, but one of the main things that stood out to me in this football game was the opening kickoff. Andrew DeGaulle forces the fumble. Cameron Cassioli recovers the very next play. Luigi Listabrenza, an 11-yard touchdown plunge for the IUP Crimson Hawks. Exactly. It's 6-0 as the extra point was missed. Matt Spiegel bobbling the snap. But let's touch on Luigi Listabrenza real quick, as he had 103 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. 3 touchdowns all coming in the first quarter. I believe he had 94 rushing yards in the first quarter as well, highlighted by that electric 41-yard run, reversing field, going this way and that, meandering around. But how impressive has the freshman been this season? 8 touchdowns in 4 games for Luigi.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you. He's a guy that I didn't really know too much about coming into the season. I was looking at guys like Izzy Green to be a big part of this offense. And to me, Izzy Green has had some injury problems. I've heard he's been not really performing up to standards in practice, leading him to not being playing on game day. And Luigi Listabrinza has come in and really has filled that void tremendously. He's a no-nonsense runner. He's north and south, grinded right up in there behind that big offensive line, and he's done a phenomenal job. 8 touchdowns in 4 games is something to look at it because if you look at him, a lot of his touchdowns, I think the 41-yarder you're talking about, that reminded me, yep, I'm going to plug Le'Veon Bell here. That reminded me of his opening touchdown against the Cleveland Browns when he was kind of bobbing and weaving reverse fields. It was a very great run. He showed to be able to get to the outside, to be able to pick up yards after contact. And I was just very impressed with him. And he's definitely a player to look at to grow. And only a freshman. He's only going to get better. And I think the running back position, which seems to always be in good shape, will continue.
I would have to agree. I think the part that impresses me the most about him is his poise as a player, especially being a freshman. They get caught up in all the height, playing college ball, people cheering your name. He doesn't seem to be affected by any of that. He plays his game. He plays it well, very well. And having 8 touchdowns in 4 games is nothing but short of remarkable, especially for him. He's playing hard and he's really putting this team on his back along with Chase Hazlitt and leading this offensive team.
Yeah, and for IUP, of course, so much has been made about Luigi Listabrinza, but there are a couple of other running backs that have really helped stabilize this position. Of course, another freshman, Chris Temple, has been really helping out the IUP Crimson Hawks the last number of weeks, and Darian Bradley has also showed some good flashes as well. He got the majority of the carries in the second half. Speaking of that second half, it was good to get a lot of second-team guys. We, of course, saw Eddie Stockett in that game as well. Was this win a good confidence booster for the Crimson Hawks?
Absolutely, and I think you make a great point. I was talking on the air for our broadcast, myself and Mike Gosnell. Those reps that those backups got were very quality reps. It's definitely, and you saw Coach Igneni and the rest of the coaching staff. They didn't let their guard down. They were using all those opportunities to still have coaching moments in the game. The game might have been out of hand, but they still wanted their players. Just because the backups are in, that doesn't mean the standard that needs to be still needs to be held. And the backups, I thought, did a pretty nice job of that. But those reps that never know what comes down the line. Injuries happen. Off the field, whatever may be. Those reps that they got definitely gave them the experience that they'll need, given the possibility that they might need to play some snaps come as we get down later in the season.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a good win for them, especially going into Edinboro. They lost a couple weeks ago. They lost to Kutztown, which was a very shocking loss, and the way they lost, I think, was very shocking to the IUP. So just to be able to get back in this game and play their game, defense played well, offense played well, special teams played their game. So I just think it's a good team win, and they can focus on this week ahead and facing Edinboro. So I just think they have a lot of momentum heading into this next game.
Yeah, and for IUP, of course, Dimitri, you mentioned it, all those coaching moments. IUP, it starts with head coach Ignetti, has a culture there that they want to stick to a process, and you want to do things right no matter what the score is. You want to treat it like a 0-0 game and use every play as a chance to improve and get better, and I think that's the approach that the IUP Crimson Hawks took. Of course, Eddie Stockett not getting a chance to throw the ball maybe as much as we all wanted, but his time will come eventually, and let's go ahead and look at the matchup this week against the Edinboro Fighting Scots. Edinboro coming in 0-4, their worst start since 1955, playing Carson Newman, Cal, East Stroudsburg, and Chips away. A tough schedule for the Fighting Scots, maybe one of the toughest schedules in Division II football, but they certainly have some playmakers. So let's just go ahead and take a look at this matchup. What do you expect in this road game for IUP? They need to play well on the road.
This is a game where you might look at it from just outsiders and you say, oh, IUP is going to roll all over them just because of the record, or whatever the case may be. But here's where I see IUP definitely not overlooking Edinboro. Edinboro came in here last year, and I think it was in November. Cold day. I was calling the game for WIUP-FM, and Edinboro really stuck it to them. It was a close game. Mike Box threw an interception at the end of the game that they were driving down the field. But Edinboro came in here, which shouldn't have won that game. IUP let that game slip out of their hands. And some of the guys on this team that were a part of that last year, guys like Mike Box, Terrell Barnes, Carl Fleming, guys like this. But definitely there's some guys and coaching staff, they still have that bad taste in their mouth that they let Edinboro come in here and get a W on their home field, which usually IUP is great at home. So I fully expect IUP not to overlook Edinburgh despite their record, despite the numbers. I don't think they're going to look anything into that. I think they're going to be focused. I think they're going to go in there with a purpose, and it's a business trip, and I think they're going to definitely take Edinburgh. They're not going to take them lightly. They're going to take them seriously, and I think they're going to give their best effort. And hopefully for IUP, that's a win.
Yeah, this is going to be, you would think that IUP would be able to just lock this game down, but this is what football players like. This could be a perfect trap game for IUP. If they go in there lackadaisical, if they think they can just roll over Edinburgh, it's not going to happen. No team's going to do that. And they have to go in there with the mindset, this is a new week, we're going to play our game, and, you can't think about last year. The only thing that matters is what you can do today. So you got to execute very well on all three phases of the game, and hopefully they can come out with a win, because this isn't going to be, even though they're 0-4, this isn't going to be an easy game for IUP, because like you said, last year, Edinburgh came in here, they came back, they won the game, and they left a bad taste in IUP's mouth. So that's not going to happen. Again, they should have to play well in all three phases, and I think they can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Edinburgh, of course, you said coming in here last year beating IUP. These players were reminded on Monday, Coach Ignetti holding his team meeting, showing some film from that game. Special teams, of course, playing a big part, as it did in Mercyhurst as well. Edinburgh had a blocked punt for a touchdown. They had a return touchdown as well. And then Terrell Barnes fumbled that ball. It hit the pylon. Edinburgh got the football back and scored on that drive. So special teams going to play a big part as well. Edinburgh's got a very good offense. Quarterback Cody Harris, it's his 6th year, has only thrown 1 interception on the year, completing about 70% of his passes. Very dynamic quarterback there. And on defense, it's Victor Hudson leading the way for Edinburgh, a good rush linebacker. They play about 3 down linemen, but Victor Hudson, of course, roaming the field as well. And a young secondary, but it's going to be the makings of a good old-fashioned shootout on the campus of Edinburgh. Of course, that game on Saturday, kickoff at 2 o'clock. That's all the time we have here for the Crimson Huddle for Dimitri George and Malusi Kitchen. Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen, because Kyle Condor will be here with the 2-minute drill when we return right here on The Big Hit.
How are we going to watch this when you are just in La La Land? This is embarrassing.
Is that bad?
Look at you.
I thought this was a pretty good segment.
Did you?
Yeah.
Do you even know what they're saying?
No.
You're putting your foot up on set. You just think this is a couch? This is embarrassing. I mean, even here, you're starting to interrogate somebody. Look at you. Turn your back to the camera. That's embarrassing. Where's your suit and tie? You have a Pirates shirt on.
They made the playoffs.
I don't care. You can't be biased. This is ridiculous. Ay, Dios mío.
What's up, guys? Kyle Condor here, as usual. And I know this is usually the 2-minute drill, but today I'm going to try and get this one done in 1 minute and 44 seconds. You know why? Because this past Sunday, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers showed me that a lot can be done in that amount of time. Take it from a guy who stole the show this past week in the world of sports, former New York Yankees shortstop Derek Jeter. Wow, former. That sounds weird. But the point being is that the guy gets it done in crunch time. He has the most hits, total bases, and runs scored in the history of the MLB playoffs. For crying out loud, he even has the 3rd most home runs in postseason history. And to top it all off, he hit a walk-off single in the World Series on Thursday. Take that, Keith Olbermann. Why do you always call me when I'm on air? Wait, the Yankees didn't win the World Series? They didn't even make the playoffs. Sorry about that, guys. By the way people reacted, I could have swore that was the World Series Derek Jeter hit that single in. But one team that still has a shot at that crown is the Kansas City Royals. And you'd think that their playoff tickets would sell instantly, being that this is their first time making it since 1985. But that was not the case. In fact, some dedicated fans were unable to purchase any tickets due to the excessive amounts of people clicking away at their computer screens trying to snag a seat in Kauffman Stadium for their wild card game against the Oakland A's. So instead, the fans who lagged behind got the tickets. So much for the saying, early bird gets the worm first. But there is a game to be played, and there will also be Bucktober baseball in Pittsburgh this season, because the battling Buccos battled their way all the way through September, winning an impressive 17 of their last 23, which was good enough for them to earn a home wild card game. I'll leave you guys with that note. For producers Dan Wallace and Dimitri George and director Danielle Eberly, I'm Kyle Condor. And whether you're happy or sad, I'll see you next week, Pirates fans.